The Titan Stronghold was the pride of humanity, a massive fortress built above the glowing red clouds of a giant planet. It stood as a city of steel, a shield in the dark, a place where humans believed no enemy could ever reach. For years it had been called unbreakable. For years the galaxy had feared its name. But that night the sky itself turned against it. The alien fleet came without warning. The Zarin ships filled the stars, sharp and silver like blades of light. They moved in silence at first, then opened fire with weapons that cut through space like lightning. The outer defenses of Titan were the first to fall, massive cannons and satellites burning bright before turning to ash. Human ships rushed to meet them, their engines glowing blue, their guns blazing with fire. But the storm of enemies never seemed to end. Inside the fortress, alarms screamed. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Families clutched their children and ran for the lower bunkers. Soldiers grabbed their rifles and sprinted to battle stations. Every wall shook as explosions thundered outside. On the bridge, Admiral Cade stood tall, his jaw set, his eyes sharp. "Hold the line," he roared. "Titan does not fall." His voice carried strength. But even as he spoke, he could see the truth on the battle screens. The fight was endless. Human cruisers launched wave after wave of missiles, filling the void with trails of fire. Fighters shot out of hangars like angry sparks, darting between alien ships, striking, retreating, striking again for every enemy destroyed. 10 more appeared. The Zarin were too many. Their numbers spread across the horizon like a sea of death. Hours passed and still the battle raged. The humans fought with everything they had. The shield around Titan's stronghold shimmered as enemy weapons slammed against it. The blue glow flickered, cracked, and trembled under the weight of the attack in the bunkers. People held each other and prayed above them. Steel groaned as the fortress strained against the storm. At last the shield broke. It shattered like glass, glowing fragments falling into the atmosphere of the planet below. A roar went through the alien fleet as they poured in. Their ships shot beams of fire straight into Titan's heart. Towers crumbled. Hangars erupted in flame. Thousands of lives vanished in a single flash. The proud walls of humanity's fortress cracked open. On the bridge, Admiral Cade's officers fought to keep control. Their voices were sharp with panic. Their hands rushing over controls, the Admiral said nothing. His eyes stayed locked on the burning sky. He had known this moment might come, yet to see it with his own eyes was heavier than he had ever imagined. Still, he did not give the enemy the pleasure of seeing fear in his face. "Send the signal," he said quietly. His voice was not broken. It carried something deeper, something stronger than defeat. The officers turned to him. Some with tears in their eyes, they nodded. A message was sent into the void, not to the Zarin, but to every human colony, every secret station, every hidden world. It was a single promise: humanity would not end here. The explosions came closer, ripping through the walls of the command deck. Fires lit the bridge, smoke filled the air. Admiral Cade stood at the front until the very last second, watching Titan's stronghold break apart around him. Then the final blast tore through the fortress and the pride of humanity was gone. Across the galaxy, alien leaders celebrated. The Council of 12 declared humanity broken. They raised glasses of wine and spoke of victory. They laughed at the weakness of mankind. Some said humans would never rise again. Some said Earth itself would soon fall. Their voices echoed through great halls filled with alien banners and songs of triumph. But in the shadows of space, far from the Council's gaze, secret shipyards stirred to life. Engines hummed in silence. Hidden moons and asteroids glowed with the fire of construction. For years, humanity had been preparing. For years, they had built in silence, waiting for the day the galaxy would strike them down. Now that day had come, and with it, the signal had been sent. Titan's stronghold was lost. But it was not the end, it was only the beginning. The galaxy did not yet know, but a storm was waiting. A storm greater than anything they had ever seen. And when it came, the stars themselves would burn with the fire of humanity's return. Far from the ruins of Titan's stronghold, the galaxy grew quiet. The Zarin celebrated their victory, their fleets drifting proudly through space as if no enemy could challenge them again. But deep in the shadows of forgotten stars, humanity was not broken. Humanity was silent, watching, waiting, preparing on hidden colonies. Children asked why the sky was so quiet. They did not hear the distant hum of war. They did not see the fire being built beneath their feet. On the frozen moon of Charon, inside mountains carved hollow, workers hammered steel and poured fire into the bellies of half-built warships. Sparks flew like falling stars as welders sealed hulls thicker than anything the aliens had ever seen. These ships were not small. They were not fragile, they were monsters of metal. Silent giants that waited for the right moment to rise. Everywhere across the forgotten corners of human space, the same story unfolded. On asteroid belts hidden behind dust clouds, fleets of carriers were built in silence on dying planets abandoned by alien maps. Massive shipyards turned deserts into fortresses. The galaxy thought humanity was scattered and broken. But every loss, every death at Titan had only hardened them. The signal from Admiral Cade reached them all. It carried through the dark like a whisper of fire. It told no lies, it did not promise peace, it carried only one truth. Humanity would return, stronger than before. Workers raised their heads from their tools. Soldiers clenched their fists. Mothers hugged their children with quiet tears. The fall of Titan was not an end, it was a beginning. In the council chambers of Earth, leaders sat around a long black table. Their faces were carved with lines of grief and anger. Some wanted to sue for peace, to beg the aliens for mercy. But others slammed their fists and shouted, "Mercy is for the dead, Titan's fall will not be forgotten. We will rise." The room shook with voices as arguments raged, yet one plan was already in motion, one that had been waiting in secret for decades. Project Revenant. That was the name whispered in the shadows, a plan older than Titan's Stronghold itself. While the galaxy believed humans were weak, while even their allies doubted them, Project Revenant had been building. It was not one fleet, but many, hidden like seeds under soil, waiting to break open. In the silence of deep space, a commander walked through a hangar the size of a city. His boots echoed against the steel floor as his eyes swept over the endless rows of ships. Their black hulls gleamed under the dim lights. The sight was enough to steal his breath. Thousands of warships rested there, each armed, each ready, each silent as stone. But they were not alone. Across dozens of systems, hundreds of thousands more were waiting. The galaxy mocked humanity for silence, but silence is not weakness. Silence is the breath before the strike. The workers and soldiers knew it. They spoke of Titan in whispers, not with despair, but with fire. They remembered Admiral Cade's last stand. They remembered the banners burning and every soul sworn to avenge them. Still, the silence was dangerous. Alien scouts moved through the edges of human space. Some saw flashes of engines in the dark. Some heard strange whispers of movement. They reported to the council, but the council only laughed. "Humans are finished," they said. "Let them build scraps. Nothing they create will match us." The warnings were ignored, and so the silence continued. On one distant outpost, a young pilot named Joran stood beside his fighter. He had been only a boy when Titan fell. He had watched the fortress burn on the holoscreens. His father died on that day. His voice trembled when he swore he would fight. But his hands were steady on the controls, like him. Thousands of young men and women across the colonies trained day and night. Their ships were new, their weapons untested, but their hearts were sharper than any blade. The galaxy believed humanity was broken, but in truth, humanity was sharpening itself into a weapon. The silence was not surrender. It was the building of thunder. The Zarin drank their victories like wine, never realizing that every day of quiet was another day the human fleets grew, another day warships were born, another day the storm became heavier. One night, far from any star, the dark was broken. A single warship powered on. Its engines glowed like a heart coming alive. Its crew stood at their stations, eyes fixed forward. In the silence, they felt the weight of what was coming. They were not alone. Across hidden bases, across moons and asteroids, across planets thought dead. Engines lit one by one. The silence was ending. The galaxy thought it had won, but humanity had been holding its breath. Now the breath was ready to be released. And when it came, it would not be a whisper. It would be a roar that shook the stars. The silence before the storm was almost over. The storm itself was about to begin. The galaxy did not notice at first. The Council of 12 drank their victories like fine wine, and the Zarin fleet sang of their triumphs as if the war was already finished. But whispers began to spread, quiet at first. Like wind moving through cracks in stone, it started with missing patrols. Small alien scouting groups that entered the edges of human space simply did not return. Their signals went dark. Their ships vanished without trace. At first, the Council thought it was accidents, space storms, broken engines, common things in the void. But then more ships disappeared, and then more. until entire squadrons were swallowed by silence. On the rim worlds of the Valari, traders spoke of shadows moving between stars. They said they saw black shapes slip across their radars, massive ships that did not match any design known to the Council. Some called them ghosts. Some laughed and said the humans were building toys in the dark. But a few grew uneasy. They remembered Titan, and the defiance that burned even as it fell. A Zarin captain named Draxus sat in his command chair, his eyes scanning the empty horizon. He had lost friends in the missing patrols. He did not believe the lies of the Council. He knew something was stirring. "The humans are moving," he told his crew. "I feel it in the silence." His officers glanced at each other nervously. They had seen strange engine trails too, faint but real. The void was whispering, and the whispers spoke of war. Meanwhile, in secret chambers hidden deep within the Council's core world, certain voices began to question the victory. Why do humans stay silent? One alien lord asked. The weak cry for mercy. Yet humans send no word, they make no plea, they only vanish into the dark. Another laughed. Because they are dead, and ghosts do not speak. But unease grew. Shadows had always followed humanity, and the shadows were thickening now. On a distant mining colony run by the Creel, a cargo vessel reported seeing something impossible, a fleet of black ships drifting past the edge of the system. Silent, lights dimmed, moving like predators stalking prey. The Creel captain swore they were human designs, though larger, sharper, hungrier. His report was dismissed, but days later, his entire colony went dark, and no signal was ever heard again. Whispers turned into fear. Rumors spread faster than fire in dry fields. Merchants claimed to see new human ships in deep space, designed with armor that gleamed like shadows and weapons that hummed with strange energy. Soldiers spoke of comrades who disappeared after hearing signals in the void. Faint human codes, old war chants hidden in static. The galaxy tried to laugh, but their laughter trembled. On the hidden worlds of humanity, the silence was deliberate. Every move was planned, every shadow cast with care. Commanders knew the whispers were reaching the Council, and they wanted them to. Fear was a weapon, and humans were sharpening it. The fleets did not rush, they waited, they grew. Each ship that left the shipyards was hidden in the dark, masked from enemy eyes, and yet every so often, they revealed themselves just enough to be seen, just enough to leave questions. The alien news networks mocked the rumors, calling them lies. Humans are broken, the anchors said. The age of man is over. But behind their words was a quiver of doubt, for even the Council could not explain the silence. They could not explain the whispers. They could not explain the missing ships on Earth. Leaders sat in darkness, their voices low as they watched the reports. The whispers were reaching their enemies, and soon the storm would be ready. Let them doubt, one general said. Let them laugh, let them drink their victories. When the roar comes, their laughter will die in their throats. In the deep space outpost of Vanar, Draxus, the Zarin captain, stood on his bridge once again. His scanners picked up faint signals. He narrowed his eyes, the shapes appeared like shadows. Too many to count, moving in formation, his crew gasped. How many? They asked. His mouth went dry. Too many, he whispered. The whispers had become truth. Humanity was moving. Not broken, not weak, but patient. Their silence had ended, and their first shadow had crossed into alien space. Soon the whole galaxy would know. Soon the whispers would become thunder, and when thunder rolls, lightning follows. The galaxy had grown used to the whispers. They had laughed at them, dismissed them as ghost stories, foolish fears carried by traders and lonely patrols in the void. But one night, across dozens of star systems, the truth revealed itself and the laughter died. It began in the black emptiness between galaxies, where the stars were faint and the silence deep. There in the shadows, engines lit, one by one, like candles in the dark. They glowed, thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Each light was a warship. Each warship carried the fury of humanity. The storm had awakened. The fleet was unlike anything ever seen before, not sleek and beautiful like the alien vessels, but massive, grim, and built for destruction. Black hulls absorbed the light of stars. Sharp edges cut across the void. Cannons lined their spines, their wings, their bellies. Weapons too many to count bristled like the teeth of a predator. These were not ships built to defend. These were ships built to hunt. At the heart of this armada was the flagship Iron Will, a titan of steel 3 kilometers long. On its bridge stood Commander Arik Valen. His face was carved by years of war, his eyes cold as he stared into the darkness. "The time has come," he said. His voice carried not only to his officers but across encrypted channels to the entire hidden fleet. Titan fell, but humanity did not tonight. "The galaxy will learn." The crew responded not with cheers but with silence. A silence heavy with purpose. For them, this was not glory. This was not conquest, this was vengeance. Every hand that touched a weapon remembered the screams of Titan. Every pilot who strapped into a fighter saw the fires of the Stronghold in their memory. They had waited in the shadows for this moment. And now it had come across asteroid fields. Hidden hangars opened. Fighters swarmed out like hornets, their engines streaking across the void. Carriers released lines of drones. Cruisers powered weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The void that once whispered now roared with the thunder of awakening engines. In alien space, panic began to spread. Patrols reported movement. Entire sectors reported strange shadows filling the horizon. One alien admiral laughed until his screen filled with shapes, black and endless, blotting out the stars. His laughter froze in his throat. "How many?" he whispered. The answer came in static. "Too many." The Council of 12 gathered in emergency session. For the first time since Titan's fall, their voices shook. Holograms of human fleets filled the chamber, endless rows of black ships stretching across the stars. One counselor screamed, "Impossible!" "They were broken!" Another shouted, "No species can build so many in silence." But silence had been humanity's weapon. And now silence was over. Back in the fleet, Commander Valen stood before a wall of screens showing the armada in motion. His officers waited for the order. They had rehearsed this moment for years. They had lived for this moment. "Signal all fleets," Valen said at last. "Project Revenant is active." Across the stars, warships shifted into position, 500,000 strong. Alien spies sent frantic reports. Entire planets turned their eyes to the sky as massive black shapes drifted past their moons. Some thought the end of the galaxy had come. Some fell to their knees. Some whispered the word humans with fear. The name had become legend, and now the legend was real. In the barracks of the fleet, young soldiers sat in silence. Some gripped their weapons tightly. Some closed their eyes and whispered prayers. One young pilot, Joran, who had once watched Titan burn as a child, now sat in his fighter. His hands did not shake. His voice was steady as he whispered to himself, "This is for my father. This is for Titan." The galaxy did not yet know the first target. They did not know where the hammer would fall. But every world felt the shift in the air. The whispers had become roars, the shadows had become fire. Humanity had awakened its fleet. The Zarin, once so confident, now found their supply lines collapsing under raids they could not track. Merchant ships vanished, convoys burned in the dark. Their admirals shouted for reinforcements, but their reinforcements never arrived, because they too had disappeared. Panic grew. Fear spread. The council shouted orders, but none could stop what was coming. For when 500,000 warships move, the galaxy itself trembles. And as the human fleet advanced, the stars seemed to dim, as though even the heavens bowed before the storm. The fleet had awakened, the war had truly begun, and the galaxy would never sleep again. The first strike came like a whisper turned into thunder. One moment, alien supply fleets drifted peacefully through their routes, engines glowing steady against the dark. The next moment, fire tore through them. It began at the edge of the Zarin supply chain. A convoy of cargo ships carrying food, weapons, and fuel for their armies moved through a narrow star lane, guarded by destroyers and frigates. They were confident they had crushed Titan, and in their minds humanity no longer had teeth. But then the stars went black. From the void, shapes emerged, vast and silent. Human warships slid out of the shadows like predators. Black hulls absorbed the starlight. Weapons glowed faint red along their edges. The convoy captain shouted orders, his voice high with sudden fear. But before his ships could react, the humans fired. Missiles streaked through the void like falling stars, thousands of them, each finding a target. The Zarian escort ships exploded one after another. Fire spread through the convoy. Cargo vessels split apart, spilling fuel and supplies into the vacuum. Human fighters swarmed in tight formations, darting between the wrecks, hunting survivors. It was not a battle, it was an execution. From his command seat aboard the Iron Will, Commander Valen watched in silence. His eyes were steady as the enemy fleet burned. "No survivors," he ordered. His voice was cold. Heavy with the memory of Titan, his officers obeyed. The humans did not fight to win alone, they fought to erase, to make the galaxy understand across the stars. This scene repeated again and again. Alien fleets discovered their supply lines ambushed, their trade routes destroyed. Every attempt to reinforce their borders was cut down. In 1 week, humanity destroyed more than 50 convoys. Entire sectors of alien space grew quiet, and fear spread faster than truth. On the alien homeworlds, panic began to rise. Food shipments failed to arrive. Military outposts reported empty warehouses. Fleets that once moved with pride now found themselves stranded without fuel. The Council of 12 called emergency meetings. Their voices echoed in desperation. "How is this possible?" One shouted, "Where do they get the ships?" Another slammed his fist on the table. "500,000 warships. It cannot be real." But the holoscreens told no lies. The footage showed black ships blotting out the stars. Among the humans, the first strikes lit fire in their hearts. On hidden colonies, people cheered when the news arrived. For years they had hidden, silent and patient. Now they saw the enemy bleed. They saw convoys burn, and their fear turned into hope. The fall of Titan was not forgotten, but its pain had become fuel. Young pilots like Joran flew their first missions with fire in their veins. He remembered the day Titan fell, the day his father died. Now he soared through the void in his fighter. Engines screaming, missiles streaking from his wings. Every alien ship he destroyed felt like a piece of justice. He whispered to himself as he fought, "This is for Titan. This is for us." The galaxy could no longer ignore the truth. The humans were not broken. They were not gone. They had returned with fire in their hands and vengeance in their eyes. News channels once mocking now trembled as they reported the truth. Worlds whispered in fear. The humans are back. The Zaran admirals tried to fight back. They gathered fleets, sending destroyers and battleships to protect their routes. But every time they moved, the humans were already waiting. They struck from behind, from above, from the shadows. Human fleets moved with terrifying precision, as if they knew every plan before it was made. What the aliens did not understand was simple. Humanity had learned every battle at Titan. Every life lost had been studied. Every weakness had been turned into strength. Their ships were heavier, their tactics sharper, their soldiers more relentless. The humans no longer fought like defenders. They fought like predators. One Zaran general wrote in his final log before his ship burned, "They are not men. They are not soldiers. They are the storm. They come without warning, and when they leave, nothing remains." The Council of 12 sent envoys to negotiate, but the humans did not answer. They sent pleas across the stars, but the only reply was silence, followed by the roar of engines and the fire of weapons. Humanity was not here to talk. They were here to make the galaxy remember Titan. On the bridge of the Iron Will, Commander Valen stood tall as another enemy fleet was torn apart. His officers reported victory. His crew cheered, but his face did not change. His eyes were cold. "This is only the beginning," he said. "They took Titan from us, now we will take everything from them." And as the wrecks of alien ships drifted through the void, lit by the glow of dying fire, the truth became clear to all. The first strike was over. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy was about to drown in war. The galaxy burned in places where no fire had touched before. Human fleets struck like lightning, quick and merciless. By the time alien admirals realized their convoys were under attack, the wreckage was already floating in silence. But the humans did not stop there. They carried the war deeper, into the heart of enemy territory. The first great clash came near the twin suns of Venar. The Zaran had gathered a massive fleet, more than 30,000 warships. Their admirals believed numbers would crush the humans as they had at Titan. They waited in formation, weapons ready, banners of victory already prepared. But when the humans arrived, the galaxy saw what true war looked like. 5 human fleets emerged from the dark, not small groups of survivors, but colossal armadas. Each fleet carried thousands of ships. Their hulls glowed black and red as engines lit the void. 500,000 human warships stretched across the stars. The sky dimmed beneath their shadow. The Zaran fleet trembled for the first time. The battle began with silence, then the humans fired. Their weapons struck in patterns the aliens did not expect. They targeted supply ships first, then command vessels, then communications within minutes. The Zaran fleet was blind, deaf, and scattered. Human warships moved with terrifying precision, not like soldiers improvising, But like hunters following a plan written years ago on the bridge of the Iron Will, Commander Valon stood unmoving as his officers reported the destruction. "Keep formation," he said calmly. "Do not chase. Let them break themselves against us," his fleet obeyed. Walls of human battleships locked into position, their guns roaring in endless waves. Fighters swarmed like storms of sparks, darting between alien cruisers, dropping bombs that cracked hulls in half. Joran, the young pilot, dove through enemy fire. His fighter shook with every blast, but his hands were steady. He remembered his father, remembered Titan, and each missile he fired was a promise kept around him. Hundreds of other young pilots fought the same way. Fearless, relentless, humanity's pain had turned into rage. And that rage filled the skies with fire. The Zarin fought desperately. Their ships were strong, their crews experienced, but they were not prepared for what they faced. Every tactic they had used before failed. Their formations collapsed under relentless pressure. Their admirals screamed orders, but the humans anticipated them. It was as if the humans had already studied every move they would make. In truth, they had. Titan's fall had been a lesson written in blood. Every weakness humanity showed that day had been reforged into strength. Every tactic the Zarin had used was now a map of their downfall. Humanity had learned, humanity had evolved, and now, humanity was winning. The battle lasted for hours. Stars dimmed beneath the glow of burning ships, explosions lit the void like storms. The twin suns of Vanar shone red against clouds of wreckage. By the end, the Zarin fleet was gone, shattered into drifting metal and silence. Out of 30,000 ships, less than 1,000 limped away. Humanity had lost ships too, but their numbers were endless, and their will was unbroken. News of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Entire worlds froze in fear. Alien leaders who once laughed at the whispers now stared in silence at the truth. 500,000 human warships were real, and they were unstoppable. Merchants refused to enter Zarin space. Allies began to pull away. Even neutral empires whispered that perhaps humanity could not be contained. The Council of 12 gathered once again, their chambers filled with shouting, "They should not exist!" One cried, "How can they build so many?" Another slammed his claws against the table. "They are demons. They rise from ashes and bring fire." Some demanded peace. Others demanded extermination, but all of them felt the same thing in their hearts, fear. Meanwhile, in the hidden colonies, humans celebrated. For the first time since Titan's fall, hope filled their voices. Families who once wept in silence now lifted their heads. Children dreamed not of hiding, but of stars free from alien chains. Every victory fed their spirit. Every battle turned their grief into pride. But among the fleets there was no celebration. Commander Valon reminded them that this was not victory. "Not yet. The Council will beg," he said, his voice low but sharp. "They will offer words, they will cry for mercy." But Titan did not receive mercy, and neither shall they. His officers bowed their heads. They understood. The war was not about peace. It was about remembrance. The galaxy had witnessed the fire of humanity. And for the first time in thousands of years, the stars themselves seemed to belong to mankind again. But this was only the middle of the storm. The Council still stood, the Zarin still lived, and humanity was not finished. The war would spread further, deeper, until the galaxy itself trembled beneath the weight of human fire. The Battle of Vanar was only the beginning. The stars had been set ablaze, and now, humanity would carry that fire across every corner of the galaxy. The galaxy had seen battles before. It had seen wars and empires rise and fall. But what humanity was unleashing was something different. It was not just war. It was a storm that no one could escape. After the destruction at Vanar, alien leaders who once laughed now trembled. Their halls of power shook not from explosions but from fear. For the first time, the Council of 12 no longer spoke with pride. They spoke with desperation. Messages were sent across the stars. Pleas written in hurried words, the Council begged for negotiation. Their envoys carried white flags and promises of peace. They offered trade, territory, even surrender of small fleets, but humanity did not answer. No signal came back, no voice replied. Only silence returned to the Council chambers, heavy and merciless. That silence was more terrifying than any weapon. Commander Valon had received the messages. They played on his screens, filled with trembling voices and promises. His officers asked if they should reply. He shook his head. "Did Titan receive mercy?" he asked. The bridge grew quiet. Everyone remembered the fortress burning, the families crushed under rubble, the children lost to fire. Then neither shall they, he said. His words were final. Across alien space, fear turned to panic. Worlds that once swore loyalty to the Council now whispered of rebellion. Governors abandoned their posts, soldiers deserted their fleets. Ordinary citizens looked up at the stars with dread. Every shadow, every flicker of light in the night sky felt like the approach of human warships. Mothers told their children to stay close. Fathers whispered that the humans were coming. The Zarin military tried to recover. They built new fleets, they fortified worlds, but their soldiers no longer fought with pride. They fought with fear in their eyes. For every time they engaged the humans, they lost. For every ship they destroyed, 10 more seemed to appear. Rumors spread that the humans had endless ships, that they were not flesh but machines, that they rose from death itself. Fear turned soldiers into ghosts before the battle even began. Young Joran flew through these battles with fire in his heart. His squadron had become a blade that cut through alien fleets. He had lost friends, but his resolve only hardened. When his commander asked why he never hesitated, Joran whispered, "Because Titan did not hesitate. They fought to the end, and so will I." His words spread among the pilots, and soon the fighters carried that spirit into every battle. The Council of 12 met in secret, their voices filled with terror. "If we do not stop them, they will erase us," one cried. "We must unite all empires together, or we will be nothing." But even as they spoke, cracks spread through their alliance. Some empires had already begun sending quiet messages to the humans, not with demands, but with offers of surrender. They had realized the truth. Humanity was not just a force, they were inevitability. In the hidden colonies of mankind, families gathered around glowing screens, watching as alien leaders begged for peace. The people did not cheer, they sat in silence, remembering Titan. Remembering the screams, the fire, the loss. For them, this was not a game of power, it was justice, it was memory. Humanity did not want their riches. Humanity did not want their worlds. Humanity wanted something far greater, the galaxy's fear on the bridge of the Iron Will. The fleet gathered in tight formation from above. It looked like a wall of black steel stretching across the stars. Commander Vaylon stood before them, his voice carrying across encrypted channels. "They call for peace," he said. "But when we cried for peace, they answered with fire. When we begged for mercy, they gave us chains. Titan's ashes are still warm, and they think words will cool them. We are not here to talk. We are here to remind the galaxy of what it means to face humanity." His words spread through 500,000 warships. Every captain, every soldier, every pilot felt their hearts tighten. No one spoke of retreat. No one spoke of surrender. The humans moved forward, and the stars seemed to move with them. The Council had wanted silence. They had wanted mercy, but all they received was fear. And fear was spreading like a sickness across every corner of the galaxy. Entire planets whispered the same truth in the dark. Humanity had returned, and there was no escape. The roar of engines filled the void. Black ships blotted out constellations the galaxy had begged. But the humans had answered only with silence. And soon that silence would be broken, not by words, but by fire. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Entire sectors of the galaxy fell quiet, waiting, watching, hoping the storm would pass. But it did not pass, it grew. The human fleet no longer moved in whispers, no longer struck in shadows, it now advanced in full light. 500,000 warships stretching across the horizon like a wall of fire. On every alien world, people lifted their eyes to the night sky and saw shapes blotting out the constellations. The stars they had known since birth vanished behind the endless black hulls of human ships. Panic spread through cities. Crowds filled streets, voices rising in fear. The words repeated again and again. "The humans are here." The Council of 12 sent one final desperate message, broadcast across every channel. Their voices shook with fear. "We surrender, we will give you worlds. We will give you fleets. We will give you peace. Only stop this war." Their message echoed through space. But no reply came. Only the hum of engines. Only the roar of silence. Humanity did not answer with words. Humanity answered with presence on the bridge of the Iron Will. Commander Vaylon stood before his crew. His face was calm, his eyes cold. "They begged Titan for surrender," he said. "Did Titan receive mercy?" His officers stood silent. They all knew the answer. The fortress had burned, its family slaughtered. No plea had been heard. "Then they shall receive nothing," Vaylon said. Not peace, not mercy, only memory. The memory of humanity's return. The fleets moved into formation. Not scattered lines, but layered walls of steel and fire. Battleships at the front, carriers behind. Fighters swarming like angry sparks. Drones hummed to life by the millions. Their engines roared, vibrating through space itself from a distance. The human fleet looked like a storm cloud, black and endless, ready to swallow everything. The aliens tried one last defense. More than 50,000 ships gathered at the border of their core worlds. Admirals shouted orders, soldiers braced themselves. Banners were raised, but deep down they knew. The sight of 500,000 human warships was enough to break them before the first shot was fired. The battle began with fire. Missiles streaked out in waves. Human cannons roared. Beams of energy cut across the void. Alien fleets collapsed almost immediately. Their lines broke as humans pushed through like a tide. Fighters darted between capital ships, dropping bombs that split them apart. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds. Wreckage spinning into the dark. Jiren, the young pilot, led his squadron through the chaos. His fighter weaved through enemy fire. His voice was calm as he called out targets. His missiles struck true. His cannons burned holes through alien hulls. Around him, his squadron moved as one. Their voices steady, their courage unbroken. For them, every alien ship destroyed was one step closer to justice for Titan. Alien admirals screamed into their comms, calling for reinforcements, calling for retreat. But there was nowhere to run everywhere they turned. Black human warships blocked their path. The humans had planned this moment for years, and now it unfolded with terrifying precision. The Council of 12 watched in horror from their palace chambers. The holoscreens showed their fleets burning, their soldiers screaming, their empires collapsing. One counselor wept openly, another collapsed to the floor. Their voices broke into silence as the truth settled in. They had awoken something they could never control. Back on Earth, in hidden colonies, humanity watched too. Families held each other, not with fear, but with pride. Children whispered the names of the ships they saw on screens. Mothers and fathers wept, not for loss, but for the return of strength. For the first time in generations, humanity was not prey, humanity was the storm. The battle raged for hours, but the end was never in doubt. When the last alien flagship fell, when the last cruiser broke apart, the galaxy itself seemed to fall into silence. Wreckage drifted through space like ash. Fires burned across shattered hulls. 500,000 human warships stood unbroken. Their shadows covered everything. Commander Valen stared at the screen. His voice carried across every fleet. Titan has been avenged, he said. His crew stood in silence. Their eyes wet, their hearts heavy. He did not smile. This was not victory. This was memory carved in fire. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget from that day. The stars belonged to mankind once again. The Council's power was broken. Their fleets erased, their pride shattered. The galaxy had begged for mercy, but mercy had not come. Instead, 500,000 human warships blotted out the sky, and in that darkness a new light was born. The light of humanity's place among the stars. The war was over, but the story of humanity had only just begun.